This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast and community for creative people who value and enjoy working alone. Hello, everybody. I'm Franklin Taggart, and this is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love working alone. And this podcast was my idea. We also have a community on Facebook that is growing not rapidly, but meaningfully. And it's a wonderful space for people to connect with each other in just an environment where there are people who understand each other. So it's called Your Own Best Company. And if you'd like more information about that, you can get in touch with me at franklintaggart.com. My guest today is Heather Chavin. And Heather is somebody that I don't know well, but our mutual friend Ariana Friedlander introduced us. And anybody that Ariana respects, they're already high on my list. So that was the introduction. Heather is the founder and owner of a company called GoGoDone. And it was started in 2019. We're going to hear a lot more about the story about how that company came about. But it's so multifaceted, but it started out primarily, as I understand it, Heather, as a co-working organization.
Yes. Yeah, a space for folks to come together on Zoom and co-work, which I know we're seeing a lot of those spaces post COVID. But this was started a little bit before then. For me, personally, it was my own mission to serve my own needs around, really, it started with accountability that I set a lot of goals, and without external accountability, I struggled a lot to meet my own goals, had a lot of negative self-talk about, I must be lazy, I must not want it, all of those different things. And then did a lot of self-reflection and exploration and just realized that this is how I operate. And if anybody's kind of followed Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, she does the oblige. This is how you respond internal and external expectations. Yeah. And there are many of us who do not do well with only internal expectations. It does not mean we're lazy. It does not mean we don't care. This is how our systems operate. Mm-hmm. And I've tried like crazy to become the person that responds well to internal expectations, to no avail. So I really started to build it to be sure that I was building my own career, even hobbies, my goal-directed behaviors, whatever they might be, in a direction I wanted to go. I wanted to be able to set a goal and achieve it. I wasn't having that beforehand. And I created this space where you could get just a little bit of external accountability. And for me, that was enough to start to get me moving on things that had been stagnant for quite some time.
That's an interesting beginning. Do you have a sense of what it was within you that made staying on task and seeing things through? What were the things that made that challenging?
I think that if you look at our brains, our lizard brain, our old brain, the really powerful brain, the decision maker, right, our ancient brains, are all about the lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, air, water, shelter, companionship, and all of those kinds of things. And I think those things were just overriding, like low energy. It doesn't want you to expend too much energy because we got to save it from running away from a predator or whatever. So my kind of old brain was just like, no, we're going to conserve energy. We're not going to do things. And until there's a reason to push me into motion, which would be acceptance in my community or the thoughts of others. And so it's not that my entire self-value, hinges on the thoughts of others, but a big portion of my self-value hinges on the thoughts that other people have of me, of specific people, right? Like if my mom is disappointed in me, I care about that. Yeah, and my happiness is impacted. If some random person on Twitter thinks I'm a dork, don't care.
Right.
So you can't say, I don't care. You can't care what other people think about you. There's, we're humans. We live in relation with others. And that's a really powerful motivator for me. And I think so many of us are obligers because it's good for the species, for us to be in service to others. And it feels good to be in service to others. But when you have your own passions that you don't seem to be able to follow, even when those passions ultimately are to be in service to others, but there's the building blocks, it's just the system's not working. It's just not working that way. Yeah. And then if you're stressed out and if you're quote unquote busy and all of those other things that get in our way, If I think at 5 p.m. I'm going to do anything, my willpower is like tanked. It's gone. There's nothing left. And I might be incredibly passionate about something, and it might be an idea I'm in love with and something I care about very deeply. When the tank's empty, the tank's empty, and you can't gut it out. You need something else to, willpower isn't exactly a muscle, but it will run down. And then you need to fire it up in other ways, because it's, if I think I'm tired and then somebody says, I'll give you $1,000,000 to run 5 miles, I'm going to run the 5 miles. Right. But if nobody offers me the $1,000,000, I'm going to stay on the couch. Right. Yeah. So we can find other ways to trigger that willpower and to get going. And so I've done a ton of exploration at how to make that work for me, and then shared it with others in building my online community. Not for everyone, but for a lot of us obligers. And interestingly enough, if you're a Gretchen Rubin fan and you know the 4 tendencies, if you're a rebel, it's a really nice space as well. We have quite a few rebels.
Cool. I need to make sure that I read that one, because it's not one that I've ever actually read.
Just go online and take the quiz. I mean, definitely buy Gretchen Rubin's book and the whole thing. She's wonderful. She has a free quiz online that you can take. That's, so I don't know that this is science, but I think it will one day prove to be like science, because it describes me to a T, and it just every piece and every person I talk to, really we fall into these kind of buckets, and everybody can operate outside them. It's the same as a personality test. It's not the truth, but it's a beautiful paradigm to use. And for me, it saved me from a lot of negativity directed at myself, to say, it's not me. This is one of my big sayings. It's not you, it's your tactics. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with you. You're trying to fit into the tactics for somebody else, or you're trying to fit into a world that was developed for the average person, which, by the way, doesn't exist. And so when we don't fit in, we think we don't belong, but it's not that. And so you got to try in a different set of tactics. You can't expect everybody to be mainstream on everything. So where are you fitting in, and life is easy for you and you hold lots of privileges? And where are you not in that place where the world was made for you, and you got to try different tactics?
It always strikes me, you mentioned that, it's not science yet, but it's like one of the things that I believe is that every hypothesis starts with a hunch.
Yeah.
And, I think, everything that we're seeing now that's coming out as a hunch is going to be proven by science, maybe 10 years from now or so. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your, is this your first entrepreneurial venture?
Yes. I mean, technically I have an LLC for the Airbnb on my property, and I started a small retail business to go with a social group that I have that basically makes it, I'm shooting to break even to make it be a tax write-off. It's like a personal finance goal, real business, but not looking to like pay the bills with it.
Yeah.
So I have little small things that I've dabbled in. But as far as launch a business and serve other people and market yourself and all of those things, this is the first big leap into entrepreneurship for me.
Wow. Congratulations. And I'm sorry.
I'll take the second one.
I think it's fascinating that you found your way to where you are. I know that one of the things on your resume is you've done some coaching with the Alt MBA program that Seth Godin started, and also with the Akimbo workshops. But I'm a little bit curious. The other things that you've got on your resume tend to be a little bit more in like organizational development direction. Was that something that you were interested in early on, or is that something that developed over time?
Definitely had a bit of a zigzag to my career, for sure. It's not a straight line or a very visible calling. I found at one point I was in mental health, and I built a lot of an identity around being a mental health counselor, and got burnout in a very, it's very cliche, social services burnout.
Been there.
So you know what I'm talking about. And I took a job just to pay the bills while I decompressed, reflected, and decided what was next. And that job kept throwing more money at me. So I was like, well, I guess I'll take more money. But a certain amount of time went by, and I was like, if I don't go back to counseling, I don't think I'm a counselor anymore. And it was a little bit of a personal crisis for me, because I didn't really want to give up the job. And then I had issues around counseling. Where was I going to go? How was I going to get a job? And I had a gap in my resume, right? So you have all this conversation going on in your head.
Yeah.
And in my reflection around that, I discovered that before my training as a counselor and after my training as a counselor, I did the same things in work. And I did the same things in my social life, in my social circles. And I did the same things in my volunteer work. Like I do the same things everywhere. You just have to really step back and take a meta look. Like I'm always in relationship with people. I love bringing people together. I love bringing different ideas together. I love innovation in its many forms. I'm always working with data, not in a big way, but to test my assumptions and to run an experiment, you know. So I found like all of these things that were like always there as a counselor, as the job I had before, where I was like, I should become a counselor because everybody tells me all their secrets and it's getting awkward. Like, you know, it's like, this must be a thing for me, but it was just all in the same arc. And I would just do it in different ways in different places. And so that let me release myself from the counselor identity, although I hold elements of it, and my perspective of the world is very much psychology and psychosocial, for sure. And basically organizational is social. Like it's the division between work and personal is total BS. We're just playing in with different paradigms and frames. So that would be my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So always interested in systems and how systems work and how we function within systems, because it's so hard to see the waters in which you are swimming.
Yeah.
So, and for me personally, after I had some training in diversity and inclusion in undergrad and in my master's program, and very much psychology based, a little social based. And after the murder of George Floyd, it was one of those things where I was like, I'm good with systems. And then just people were able to share. I mean, things came into the open that were super, you couldn't hide again. And folks got better at helping people with privilege see their privilege. So, so many of the materials out there and all that, I was like, oh my God, I am not good with like seeing systems and seeing bias in systems, especially when you come from that position of privilege. So that has been a redoubling of efforts for me to dive back into looking at how our systems work from the organizational level to the societal level to the global level, to keep pulling back the veil on so many different levels. So it's been that one's been a little bit of a tougher journey for me, but I have the privilege to take it or not. So I'm trying like heck to take it.
It's a hell of a progression. It's like, you know, where you started and where you are now. It's like, wow. It's like all of these things just started to open and open and open and open. Going back to GoGoDone. GoGoDone serves so many purposes. But one of the things that's really interesting to me is that I can't believe the timing of your company with regard to like COVID and all of this different, the move outward of remote work.
Yeah.
And everybody talking about, oh my gosh, there's hybrid work now, and there's all these different, you know, all these different ways that work can be done and delivered. And it's just fascinating to me that the timing of your company was just right before that really exploded. And I'm curious, how has the pandemic and the response to the pandemic created opportunities for your company?
Well, the big one is that more people were forced to work at home, and us obligers and some rebels were like, I can't get any work done. Like, oh no, you know, what's going on? Or they're not getting work done in a way, or they're, you know, feeling incredibly isolated. And I know your folks like working alone, but most humans need a certain amount of contact. And that can be very different, and it can be different styles of contact. But I think this movement and the change of everything to working from home and to needing to self-manage in a way that you didn't before led a lot of people to try GoGoDone and to come in and see. And definitely not for everyone. There's a lot of folks who, I think a lot of folks have trouble getting over the hump of showing up and building the connections. That's the hard part. those of us who were there, I was just in a mastermind group with some GoGoDoners, and we were like, those of us who are there, you're hanging out with your friends. We know so much about each other, and the culture at GoGoDone, as much as I can influence it, and I have an amazing set of hosts who bring their own flavor and really emphasize acceptance and support. Like, that's what the space is about. We're here to cheer each other on, and we're here to support each other. The structure of the sessions, the co-working sessions themselves, have some magic to them and some science behind them.
Yeah.
To be accountable and to state your goals and some things like that. Some brain breaks, et cetera, et cetera. But the real magic comes from being in a room with a bunch of people who, number one, they're not your boss. They're not the coworker vying for your position. They're not the person you're collaborating with on the report. None of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're there to support you because we've collected supportive people. It's like they want you to do well. They don't really care what you're working. They care what you're working on to the degree you care what you're working on, right? You state your goal and they want you to hit it. But we'll do things like, somebody will say, we have a little bit of our own internal jargon, we'll call like noble procrastination, which is when you procrastinate what you're supposed to be doing, but you do something really productive, but you're kind of avoiding the thing you're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
So people will call themselves out for that. And then we'll be like, okay, we're going to ask you in the next break, right? A little extra social pressure and all of that. So I think it provided this nice structure that you didn't realize was already there in the workplace for a lot of remote workers.
Yeah.
And then we found, because it's a little bit scary, it's a little bit of a risk to show up to a new place, especially on camera, especially when you don't know our jargon and you don't know, all these things. And we say we're supportive, but what does that really mean, right? It's a risk. And so we started to attract a lot of entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs by nature are a little bit, they have to do some risk taking. Yeah. And so they're a little more practiced at risk taking. And so this isn't as big of a risk it's not that it's not as big of a risk. The size of the risk is the same. The practice in taking the risk is where the difference is. And so we've ended up collecting quite a few entrepreneurs. But again, really all have stayed in that. We've grown very slowly. And in fact, took a huge dip over the summer because everybody traveled.
Yeah.
And there was like nobody left. I thought I might even fold the business. And then we've had a huge influx back in the fall. So we're going strong. We just had a pause, a little heart attack. That's why I was like, entrepreneurship. Oh my gosh. But entrepreneurs and freelancers, it's been a really nice place because they get really isolated.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happens is, my premium community is around marketing your business for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, freelancers, for small folks who are doing their own marketing, right? And it's so hard to learn without seeing the experience of other people. And so this can even happen in a GoGoDone session where we have these short breaks where we talk to one another, where you can get feedback from somebody else. We do it more formally in the premium community where we actually read each other's work and we do a mastermind and the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's really one of the dangers of working in isolation is you can get really myopic because you're not running it by anyone else.
Yeah.
So, and you don't get to a sounding board. And so I'm sure your folks have like a toolbox of, here's the person I go to for this. And this is how I do this. You can do things asynchronously. You can, email and get a response and all of that. But I think it's really important to be intentional about where solitude is and where fear and discomfort with being judged is. Yeah. And make sure that you really intentionally bring other people into your sphere, no matter what you do. And it can be in a lot of different ways. So GoGoDone is high touch, high contact, your face is out there and all of that. But some people who are obligers can be like, text me at 5 p.m. and ask me if I've done this project, right? Yeah. Like that might be enough for somebody, but it does involve another person.
Yeah.
We respond really differently when another human being is involved, and especially strongly when another human being we care about is involved. So as I've watched COVID come in and a bunch of other co-working spaces crop up and all of that, and I'm looking at how do I grow my business and I want to be sustainable, et cetera, et cetera. I found that so many of them stay quite anonymous.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I should bring some more anonymity in because it creates a little bit of safety because you're hiding basically. Right. And then I was just like, I have no problems with like some kind of softer entry, which I haven't figured out yet. Yeah. So if introverted solo working folks have great ideas for me. I would love them. But I don't mind a softer entry and getting to know people on a way that's a little more approachable rather than being thrown in at the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
Even if we're very nice and we give you floaties and we help you swim, like it's still the deep end of the pool
Yeah.
for folks who are not so comfortable with that. But I for me, it's why have another anonymous relationship? Why have another place to go where you can't lean on somebody, or where people don't really care about you other than you posted something in a chat,
Oh, yeah.
or you're an anonymous. I don't want the anonymity. So GoGoDone is not a huge money maker for me. It's a piece of my revenue stream. It's one of my entrepreneurial ventures, definitely the highest effort one.
Yeah.
But also, like, the relationships that we built are so meaningful. So I opted out of, like, bigger is not better for me. I want a deeper community.
Yeah.
And I want people who are interested in being committed and showing up regularly. We can have dabblers, that's no problem. Not every time in your life is right for that, but really looking at building this core group of folks who are like, I want to show up and I want to do the work, and I want to do my work as well as work for the boss, whatever that is, work for the client, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So putting all those together.
There are so many things in what you just said that we could go off on 82 different tangents. There are a couple of things that I, really appreciate about what you just said. And one of them is the commitment to meaningful relationships. Making the numbers a little bit secondary to the meaning really speaks to me. The other thing that's really interesting is that a lot of the folks that I am reaching are not necessarily introverts.
Mm-hmm.
It's for most of us, and including me, I am an introvert. There's no question about that. But one of the things that I think that a lot of the folks that I work with have in common that may inform the gentle entry that you were talking about is that we're highly sensitive to sensory stimulation. Mm. And it's like the room with the door is a way of creating a boundary so that not a lot of outside sensory stimulation happens, so that we can actually focus. Like if I'm in a room, even with one other person, my focus is going to be drawn to what they're up to. And so in order for me to get anything done, the room with the door is a really important thing. But the introversion extroversion piece really doesn't figure into it as much as the sensitivity. Right. If you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, as everybody is at this point, it's more of a difference between the NF personality and the SP personality. The NF people really seem to prize solitude, even the extroverted ones. Mm-hmm. So those are some thoughts that I had as you were speaking.
I love that. I love that.
Balance.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The balance between community and solitude is really important, I think, for everyone to consider. And I draw a line between isolation and solitude. Isolation to me is a more protective kind of a thing where we're trying to protect against pain, where solitude is actually more of a creative movement.
Yes, I love that distinction. And I'm really glad you brought up temperament, because I think that's one of those things. For me, temperament is that sensitivity to stimuli. Back in the counseling days, that was our jargon. I jargoned you, sorry, but you probably know. But yeah, that temperament, that sensitivity to stimulation is huge. And that's another one of those things, like the obliger, rebel, whatever, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. You just have to use different tactics than somebody who's less sensitive to stimulation. And it also can be a superpower. Like it can, when you have your energy up and you have your kind of protections in place, you can go and perceive the world in a way that most people cannot when you're really sensitive. So I think that's wonderful. And I think that the more we use those things that are not mainstream, I mean, those are the best things to use. That's an advantage that you have. That's a market differentiator if we were to get into the marketing language, right? That's how you're different in the world. That's where superpowers are. Not everybody has that. Not everybody can do that. And your distinction between solitude and isolation is a huge one, because solitude is beautiful. Isolation is sad and lonely.
Well, isolation, it just adds to the pain. It's like it's a way of avoiding pain, but it's just more painful. It's like suffering,
The devil you know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take a risk to connect with other people, but I'm not happy. I had a friend who just posted an article on LinkedIn about asking the question, are you okay? Especially in these COVID times, right? And asking more people, are you okay? And I said, I want to follow up with, when was the last time you felt really good? Like, especially these days, it might have been quite some time for that. And so I think embracing who you are, where you're at, where the circumstances are, and got to get to okay.
Yeah.
And if you're at okay, you get to go a step further than that. What might that look like, and what does enriching your life a little bit more look like? So
Yeah.
some of us are okay in isolation, but not great in isolation, right?
Not for long periods of time.
Good.
No way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't sustain it.
Yeah.
It's like I have my periods of productivity, and then they're over, and then I've got to get out of the room, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you, what are those things in your life that really actually kind of require some solitude?
For me, spaces for solitude are definitely ideation. I love a mastermind,
Yeah.
but after the mastermind, or if I want to create something new, I need the blank page. And a lot of writers are afraid of the blank page. And I'm like, oh, it looks great. I got all kinds of things to put on there. Not that they come together in a beautiful blog post, but I could fill a blank page. But ideating a new session and a new course and those kinds of things. I don't, because I want an element of it, anything that has an element of my own self-expression in it. I want to do that in solitude. And then, because I'm not going to just keep it for myself, then it needs to go out into the world and evolve from there.
Yeah.
I like the starting point to be at my core with my values expressed and my strengths expressed. If it's something I'm going to offer, right, and something I'm going to create and put in the world, it needs to be a match for me. I like that starting point to be there, so that any direction I go from there is still coming from what's at my core and what I will be best able to provide the world based on my own strengths and values.
That's resonant for me. Yeah. And what I look at it like is that there's kind of a feedback loop that happens. There's a side of the loop that is internal, and there's a side of the loop that's external. Yeah. We don't live in a vacuum here. We live in a world of people, and the creativity that happens internally has a circle on the outside that is waiting to receive it. Yes. And the circle on the outside also informs what happens on the inside. So it's a continuous loop. So it's interesting to hear that you're creative. You take and integrate the things that come out of the mastermind, but you go inside to do that.
Yes, definitely.
That's cool.
That's the loop. Your own process, touch others to get something to evolve, because it's for other people, and then bring it back in and check it by your own compass, and then take it back out again, and then bring it back in. Definitely a cycle.
Very good. Now, GoGoDone has expanded to include a lot of facets. And one of the things that I'm interested to hear about is, initially you started out primarily in coworking, but when did you add things like GoGo Publish and some of the other mastermind things that you brought together?
So I added, I don't actually remember. So GoGo Publish will have been just over a year ago. We started our beta, and that was, I'm really kind of a narcissist, right, Glenn? I'm not going to lie. I was not doing my marketing for GoGoDone, and I'm an obliger. So I'm going to need to have some kind of external structure. So why not run a program for it? So now I have a co-working community specifically for doing our marketing. For all of us small business people doing our marketing. So I beta tested it, I think last September, October, something like that. So we've been going for about a full year, and we have, I think, 21, 22 folks in there now.
Yeah.
And I would not mind growing it substantially, but it will for sure never get above 100 people, because communities start to self-divide over a certain number. I don't know if we could even sustain that many people and still keep the culture together, but we definitely could grow a little bit. And I'm hoping to do that over 2022. And then I did run something called GoGo Sprint for a while, which were these 2-week sprints, which were just magic. And as that summer slowdown happened, it totally disappeared.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, people don't want it, but people just wanted a break. And I was offering it monthly. And I think it could have been every other month or quarterly, because I've had a lot of people knocking on my door going, where's the sprint? And I'm like, well, I've rearranged the schedule now. I don't have time for that. So I might need to do some rearrangement again. But that was great. It was a little bit of it was a way to kind of launch and unlock a project. We would do 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. And then after each of the 2 hours, somebody could take a mastermind slot. And we had a half an hour structured mastermind slot where we would give people ideas or it depended on what they were coming to us with. We'd give them feedback on a landing page, or they would be like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Big questions, or, you brought whatever you wanted to bring to the mastermind. You'd put your goals on a worksheet, right? It had all the accountability bells and whistles to it and all of that. But it also had kind of a home team of people who followed your journey for the 2 weeks. It's really magical to have somebody cheering you on. Like, we are humans, we are connected to one another. I just kind of forget it and take it for granted. And then I'm having a rough day and somebody at GoGoDone's like, so how's such and such going? And I'm like, oh, somebody cares. It just creates a huge change emotionally. So the sprint will probably make its way back in one form or another. And then I'm looking at launching a money mastermind.
Cool.
So people I have tons of entrepreneurs, and we need to be on top of our finances and looking at our businesses and how they're running, and our personal finances, especially small business people, because those sometimes tend to blur a little bit. We got to be careful about that. And really interested in the whole realm of financial independence, which is the concept for me that draws me in is the idea of unhooking work and money. So to be financially independent enough that whatever work I do, quote unquote work, so goal-directed behavior, mission behavior, vision, vocation type behavior I do is not completely reliant on the paycheck.
Yeah.
So that has a huge draw for me. And then there's all kinds of bells and whistles around that, and budgeting and living within your means and investing your money and all those kinds of things. And we don't talk about money in the world in general. And of course, I have my environment of supportive, accepting people. We're big on psychological safety. I'm like, we should talk about money. We should do our budgets, and then we should talk about money. So I'll be launching an accountability session for that, and maybe some quarterly ones for us to get our taxes together and our ducks in a row.
That sounds amazing. What a great service. Can we go back to GoGo Publish for a minute?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what it does and how it works?
Oh, so Publish, it operates on the similar format to GoGoDone with the co-working sessions. Mm-hmm. They're very specific co-working sessions. So, and they're only open to those in this specific sub-community. So we have 1 2-hour session for you to draft a blog, edit your video, edit your podcast, whatever your content creation work is. Totally optional. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, depending on what time zone you're in, we have a half an hour where we promote each other's posts on social media, whatever platform you're on.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a mix. We have a mix of what people do and which platforms they're on. And so we'll promote each other's posts 3 times a week. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have different 1-hour sessions each day. Tuesdays is one called Building Your Social Ecosystem. And one of my co-hosts, Peter Nakamura, who's fantastic, really great with customer interviews and all of that. He's dug deep into what it looks like to do outreach, because social media is supposed to be a conversation. Yeah. So you can post and post and post, but you also need to go comment and comment and comment. And how does that serve your business and your own following? So we got to do our marketing funnel. So we need to go out and not just comment, but when somebody comes and checks out our profile or comes to our page, are they following it? And then if they're following it, how are we touching them again and bringing them deeper into the funnel or into the flywheel, whatever model you prefer. So taking people from top of funnel, from out there, just hearing about you, and finding the right ones and bringing them closer and closer in until they become a customer.
Okay.
So that's that outreach piece in social media. Wednesdays is a feedback session where you do 30 minutes of drafting content and trade it with somebody to get feedback, which is probably my least attended session because it's scary and the most powerful. My content gets so much better. I will totally change things. I've changed decisions. I've changed strategy. It's so powerful to have other people look at your work. And we are supportive and accepting community. We do it with kindness and care and questions, not like, this is terrible. Nobody's ever said that in GoGo Publish. So And then Thursdays is a mastermind, and we have two structured masterminds back to back. We usually have a theme. November's theme is your marketing funnel, because people aren't really structuring things properly. So they're like, well, my Facebook's growing, my LinkedIn's growing, and I'm not seeing a change to my bottom line, because you're not making that connection. So, and then first Friday of the month, we do review your metrics and make any plans for your content plans moving forward. If Christmas is coming up, are you going to do anything for that? Is that relevant to your business and all of that, right? Like, so we need to make what posts are performing really well. What's working. Let's program some more of those into the agenda. And then we do an education session. So like our last one was about selecting and using hashtags and the different social media outlets, and some of the LinkedIn is so crazy. They'll recommend that you use a hashtag that has no followers. It's like, oh my gosh. So you kind of, well, one of the community members, it's usually me or one of my hosts, but one of us will do, and it's usually a hybrid hour. So half an hour of presenting and then do the work, because we're really good. I mean, everybody's busy. Busy. So you're like, I should do that. And you never do it. So we like to create that time block. That's part of the GoGoDone general magic. Like, and you're going to sit here and do it now. And then you never have to think about it again till next year when you refresh it or whatever. Yeah.
It kind of answers the question that I had about structure.
Yeah. So,
one of the things that it sounds like that GoGoDone helps people with is to provide some structure for activities that are important, necessary, and a space for those to happen online for those who are remote workers, for sure. Mm-hmm. What's the makeup of the community for GoGoDone? Like, who are the people?
We actually have a lovely diversity of people. We have a small Australian contingent. I don't think we have anybody from New Zealand anymore. She moved to Canada. And a European contingent. So we have sessions that are 1 a.m. for me on Pacific time in the US for our European folks. And then predominantly Eastern, Central and Eastern time zone folks, because it's the highest population in the States. And then some of us in Mountain and Central time, and Canadians in there, and some folks from Mexico. So we are international, but kind of pockets. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, but we have corporate workers as well. We have freelancers. So, as I said earlier, like, entrepreneurs are a little more comfortable with risk taking. So they've tried GoGoDone and then stayed, or that type of risk taking. And so I think we skew a little bit on the entrepreneurial side. We skew a little bit on, I don't know that we have many people who are under 30. So we kind of have professionals who have been in their profession for a while. And I think we're 60-40 women to men. And I think that other than that, like, I'm trying desperately to figure out our other descriptors so I can market for them. Who's like, yes, I'll show up on video. That's not a problem for me. I don't know who that is, but and some of them came with nervousness and all of that. Plenty of people show up. It's not like they don't. It's not intimidating at all, but plenty of folks were like, okay, it's going to be awkward for a hot minute, and then I'm going to know if I want to stay or go, but I can do it. Not the like, put that off till tomorrow. So I don't know what descriptor you use for that group of folks, but
Well, if a person decided to join today, I mean, where would they jump in? What?
I think that first of all, they could message me directly and come to one of my sessions if they have a certain level of nervousness around it. Absolutely. And one of the things we were just talking about in the mastermind is like, when you show up, the host does a wonderful job of welcoming you. And I was, of course, gratified to hear that they're like, and everybody else does too. Yeah. Like, we really are such a warm, fuzzy group of people. I just absolutely love it. So, and the groups aren't huge. I think the biggest session is maybe about 12 people that you'll see. And there'll be a lot of groups of 4 and 6 and 7 kind of. And we'll put people in breakout rooms if we have big enough crowds. Mm-hmm. So you'll be with a small group. So they could come to a session. I'll just send them the link if they want, and they can do that. You can also go to GoGoDone.com and click to sign up, and it'll take you to our scheduling page, which has a free week option, and you put free week code right in there. Okay. And then you can just sign up for sessions and dabble as you like. There are 90-minute sessions and 120-minute sessions. So 90 minutes is great for, like, we call it the miscellany. So like, I got to answer some emails and I got to file some things and I got to, because we do 3 Pomodoros. So 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Okay.
And that keeps you mentally fresh. The breaks are there to to refresh the brain. So if you're doing really deep 3-hour work, we don't have any of those sessions, but we might soon. But and then the 120-minute, the 2-hour ones are 50 minutes on, 10-minute break in the middle, 50 minutes on. And we find that the break time isn't long enough to create that startup cost. Like you remember where you left off. You don't have to start the project all over again. We're talking productivity now. So it's short enough, but it does give your brain the break. There's some good research out there around keeping that mental acuity higher by taking these frequent short breaks.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind that.
One of the things that you've got, I can't remember if I saw this on the website or if I saw it on LinkedIn, is that, your community is 3 clicks away. It's like, 3 clicks and you're in.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me a little bit about, like, is this an around the clock availability or is it just certain hours of the day?
Around the clock because of our European hosts. And so it's not totally around the clock. I think like if you're in like Southeast Asia, India kind of area, I think there's, and Australia only has a handful of sessions, I think, just that mid-morning time. But for the States, you've got, especially East Coasters, you've got tons and tons of choices, and we run the same schedule every week. So when you go to our scheduling page, you can see the sessions that are offered. And there's a post, there's a calendar on the website as well at GoGoDone.com that'll lay it out for you in Eastern time. You can't change it for your own time, unfortunately. So you have to do a little math if you're not in Eastern time zone.
Heather, you're so far from a narcissist that you should never, ever say that in the same sentence in regard to yourself.
I can be generous and a narcissist at the same time.
I think those are mutually exclusive. The thing that's really interesting is that your own needs actually created this amazing resource for people. And I know that there are going to be a lot of people who listen to this podcast who will resonate with the idea and with the service. And I'm just going to encourage them to go sign up right now. I really feel like that, you're filling some gaps that are very real for a lot of people, especially people who are new to the remote work idea.
Sure, for sure. You'll get lots of tips and tricks around productivity and lots of support. And one of the things that really kind of floored me, because I started it when I had a corporate job, but the people here and my corporate job, my coworkers were great and all of that, but it was different. It's, your people, and they were not a few of them were my people and the rest of them were not my people. And everybody was very siloed and not very connected. And you don't need tons of time together, but just having that and just having somebody behind me and no pressure. I don't have to worry about the relationship or anything. I mean, we got to be nice. We'll kick you out, I'm sure. We haven't kicked anybody out yet, but play nice and all of that. But just that lack of pressure and then that just genuine. And we have a very curious, very adventurous, very, if you mention a book, somebody's read it, like it's really a very stimulating, but not intimidating group. So everything's intimidating in the beginning, but I promise, come for a couple of weeks and you'll be like, these are my people. I mean, you might be like, these are not my people, and we will send you on your way with love, but come see if we're your people, because being able to work whenever you want, drop in and work with people that you care about, and that care about you is really a fantastic kind of way to be in the world. I have not been lonely one single day during the entire COVID. Like I have this robust community online. I've never been, what do I do next? I've been like, I got to go ask my mastermind group what I should do next, and they'll help me figure it out myself. Right. So it's never that feeling of like isolation, loneliness. There's no one to help me. It's like, there's a huge community out there that's interested in being helpful to you. That's just amazing. And so I'm going to say again, if you are hearing what we're saying here, you're somebody who is looking for opportunities to be in community with people very easily and very conveniently, you need to go to GoGoDone.com and click the button that says free week here or something like that, and just get your free week and just jump in. Yeah, something like that. And you can also email me at heather@GoGoDone.com. And just reference this episode, or don't, just email me at heather@GoGoDone.com and say, I'm interested in trying it out. What are my first steps? Or I want to come to your session, or I'm nervous, or tell me whatever. Like everything's okay around here. We take you as you come, and anything I can do to soften the start, I want to do it. I also want to put a plug in for your LinkedIn profile.
The posts that you put up on LinkedIn are extraordinarily thoughtful, well written,
Thank you.
and you are providing a lot of really good research-based information for people. So I'm going to encourage people to follow you on LinkedIn as well.
Then I have to thank GoGo Publish for that because they give me feedback on all of my posts and keep me posting.
It sounds like a great service. And Heather, I want you to come back sometime.
Yes, I would love that, Franklin.
So thank you for being my guest. And folks, always remember that even though we love working alone, we still need people. And GoGoDone is such a great way to find others like ourselves. So check it out. Thanks for being my guest, Heather.
Thanks for having me, Franklin.
My pleasure. People who work alone aren't antisocial, at least not most of us. If people think you're weird because you don't want to grow a big company and you'd rather spend most of your time working by yourself, you're just hanging around the wrong people. Your Own Best Company has a Facebook group that you're invited to join right now. We understand the urge to close the door, let your imagination run wild, and stay there until your creative impulse runs its course. We also understand the features and challenges that go along with running a business to support our solo flight lifestyles. Joining the group is free, and it's as easy as clicking the link in the channel description. So go there now and just join the group. Want to hear more where this came from? Subscribe to Your Own Best Company on your favorite podcast app or on the Franklin Taggart Coaching and Consulting YouTube channel. To get in touch with Franklin, send an email to yobc@franklintaggart.com. Thanks for listening.